Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm Zeus Caravallo from ZK Research, and I'm here doing an analyst panel at Zoomtopia 2024 in San Jose. I'm here with Craig Durr from the Collab Collective. Craig just had you on at the HP event, so welcome back.
Yeah, good to see you again.
A reminder of who the Collab Collective is and what you do.
The Collab Collective is a analyst firm focused on workplace collaboration and communication, right? It's very similar to the work that ZKast is doing, or I should say ZK Research.
Yeah, okay. And then the esteemed Melody Brue, a little bio on yourself, and you're with Moor Insights, and talk a little bit about Moor and what you do.
Yeah, Moor Insights and Strategy, also an analyst firm, but we're pretty broad-based. We have a number of different analysts that cover different, what we call swim lanes, but I cover modern work, collaboration, and a few other things. But
all right, so we just watched the keynote, and we had a Q&A with the executives. This was filled with news. I mean, in some ways it's hard to even call this a communications event now, right? There's so much stuff coming out of Zoom now. So curious, what caught your eye? I'll start with you, Craig.
Oh, well, there was a lot that came out, right? I'm going to hit two that were really interesting. AI Companion, obviously they're updating it and talking about all the new use cases around that. One that I really found interesting is they're making a workflow so you can use AI Companion outside of a meeting.
Yeah.
Actually open it up in your phone, the Zoom app, make the recording, use that transcription, then within the AI to ask questions, to incorporate it into other notes and things like that. I think that was pretty powerful.
I'm actually glad they're doing that because I find myself turning Otter on and things like that.
Yeah, I'm doing.
Yeah, even when I'm just standing there talking to somebody, just to make sure that I'm capturing what they want, right?
I was doing it in the middle of the keynote here, as a matter of fact. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's so great. I mean, like Eric said, it allows people to pay attention to the task at hand, right? Rather than you're constantly taking notes. I don't know if you were done with that, but I think one of the things that caught my eye was the custom AI companion.
Oh, yeah.
So the ability to take that AI companion and really customize it to your company information, kind of that, keep it contained within the model. So it's not just it's only responding based on what was in the meeting, but also everything that it's kind of trained on. So really custom integration in that sense.
One thing I wasn't sure about was how out of the box that is. Like, can they use if they're using Anthropic for a certain model, if I'm a healthcare institution, do I have to change models if I'm at an education, right? And so I don't know how much heavy lifting there is between that, but certainly the ability to customize that at a company level, I think is almost a necessary part of the evolution of technology. Otherwise, we just can't be getting stock answers from things. So,
and they also talked about how to incorporate into what they called AI Studio, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's a tiered level of support. At a company level, you can probably set up those additional custom LLMs or access to other databases, and then the individual gets to customize it also too. At least that's the way I thought I understood it.
Yeah. And how about you, Mel? Was there something notable that you really thought caught your eye?
So you mentioned that there were a lot of announcements. I think Eric, the CEO, if anybody's not aware of that, I'm just saying Eric.
I think most people know who Eric is.
And if you're watching this, you should know, right? That since last Zoomtopia, there are 3,000 new features. Wow. I also would call out, I think from the keynote, there's also been a lot of major new wins, especially one I found to be pleasantly surprised about is in the contact center. How Zoom is really kind of taking up market share in the contact center and going head-to-head against some, like what you would consider pure-play contact center providers and getting the big wins. So glad to see that.
Yeah, that's an area when they got into contact center, they're a little late. I wasn't sure how much traction they've had. Even their initial offering was really video-enabled contact center. Yeah. It's not a real lot of demand for that. And I think one of the interesting things they've done is they've actually created some workflows that integrate UC and CC. And so you think of their initial entry into contact center, it was for people that needed contact center functionality but lived in Zoom, not the traditional agent dashboard. Right. And now they've kind of almost backdoored their way into the agent side. But the customers I've talked to that have used Zoom Contact Center have liked it a lot. I mean, they went from nowhere from a feature perspective to caught up in really just a couple of years.
It's interesting because the ability that they have to change between the modality, going from a chat session, they showed us a great AI interactive chat session, to escalating to audio or even to video. It was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that in use case. I'd like to actually get on a Delta help desk and have them get on video with me, but we'll see.
Yeah, actually Lufthansa does that right now with Cognigy.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, and so I'm waiting for more and more all you other airlines out there, like step up your game. Yeah. And I know, Craig, you really liked some of the industry stuff they announced.
Yeah,
right?
so we've seen them last year talk about their sales AI person called Revenue Accelerator.
Yeah, and that's more horizontal.
And it's more horizontal. So now they've launched 3 more, and it's really interesting to see them lean to it. So they have one around healthcare, one around educators, and one around frontline workers. Now, I think they all have really practical use cases. Educators, for example, they had a number up there, 60,000 students and educators use their service right now, and so they have a great starting base, but probably not high revenue. Healthcare seemed really interesting, but you brought up some good concerns about healthcare.
Yeah, just around HIPAA and even discoverability. So if you're a doctor today and we're just talking, right, then we have a conversation. It's hard to know from a legal perspective what was said and what wasn't. So now if I start doing everything, if I turn my AI companion on for everything,
right,
now every conversation becomes an asset that's discoverable. That there is from a governance
preserved and everything else.
From a governance perspective, you're opening up a big can of worms that you didn't have, maybe have before. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it.
Right.
I'm just saying you got to be aware of kind of the governance implications.
So it might be cautious uptake in that one. And then the last one, which is frontline workers. And now for deskless people, I think this could be pretty powerful. The use case they talked to me about when I was talking to Moyo about was the idea of having a person ending a shift, passing on information to the next person, and what have you, but be able to generate an AI summary. This is what's taking place on the floor. This is what's taking place in the retail shop, and passing that on smoothly to the next person.
Actually, a former a nurse I was talking to said, actually, at the end of their shifts, there's always this like hour-long overlap in which you're not getting paid for, where you're doing a handoff of information. Right, and it takes your 12-hour shift and makes it a 13-hour shift and things, and so.
But Mel, you expressed some concerns about new competition now.
Right. I mean, there's really, I think we've seen over the last year or so, Zoom's offerings are really kind of going head-to-head in some capacity with Google and Microsoft, and even, I'd actually go back to the healthcare example that Microsoft has similar kind of transcriptions, and they call that time that happens after your shift pajama time, because typically doctors go home and they do it in their pajamas,
right? And
that makes a lot of sense. But I do think, doing all of these new verticals, that does introduce some other competitors. We're looking at Oracle. We're looking at, these are where they're really leaning in heavily, especially on healthcare. So I think that one thing you said that stood out to me a lot was that it's not just for the people who sit behind their desk and they're on Zoom all day, because there's so many new solutions that expand to the frontline workers, to service workers. So I think they are expanding their visibility across many different sort of workers and lanes, which I think that's a real positive.
Well, one of the slides Eric did put up was the vision was to be, I think he called it the AI-enabled platform for human connections or something. It was something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so when you throw that statement out there, you're going to bring in competition like Salesforce, like Oracle, and things like that. So I'm not sure they can avoid that, right?
Well, here's my question I'm going to ask them when I have a chance later on. Last year, they sat down here and they had a pretty clear 3-point strategy. They talked about AI Companion, contact center, and phones driving that, because Wall Street's watching, right? And they're looking for this 3-4% growth. So what is going to be carrying that 3 to 4% quarter-over-quarter growth again here in this year? Contact center, we're talking about.
Clearly.
We've got these vertical applications, but we've all expressed some probably hesitation, or we have to wait to see what's going on. And then we didn't talk much about phone, but there's some great new features in the phone as well.
Yeah,
so.
I was going to actually ask you what you thought was missing, and I thought what was glaringly missing was a phone update. And they've been in phone, I think, 4 years now. They've seen pretty remarkable growth. I thought we'd get an update on some features, but perhaps they've had so much innovation there that maybe it just didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
I also think one of the growth areas that they didn't really talk a whole lot about was Workvivo.
Oh, that's right. I love that. I love that platform. I really do.
Yeah, and that's a huge growth area for them. So I think maybe we'll be seeing that later on within Zoomtopia, that it wasn't a huge highlight of the keynote. But
right.
So a lot of people I talked to were confused about Workvivo. So explain what Workvivo is. And
it's an employee engagement platform. And one big, huge thing, which I think was not announced at an event, but announced earlier this year, is that Meta is shutting down their workplace engagement platform, and their only suggested provider is Workvivo. So anybody who's shutting down Meta, what's it called, Workplace?
Workplace.
is their migration partner is Workvivo. So I've talked to the Workvivo people. They've had a lot of migrations. They continue to have them. I think we're now at the point where Meta is like read only on Workplace, so they're going to start probably, that's going to amp up more. I'm hoping we'll hear more about that while we're here. But I think that was a huge growth area for them over, at least at the last earnings report. That was a big growth area, so I expect we'll hear more about that.
And they leaned into the idea that they are taking AI features and putting it into that platform now, which isn't native AI already, but adding some more of that should make it really interesting.
And I think that it is a great solution for anybody who is a frontline worker or a first line kind of worker that doesn't have, some of these workers don't even have an email address.
Right.
Yeah. So Workvivo nobody ever wants to think of something as like an intranet, but it's like a really fancy, really good intranet, right?
Are we going back to AOL again? Is that what we're saying?
Right. But that's where people go for answers. That's where people go for engagement.
Right.
I mean, so many people are working from home, even contact center people now working from home. So it gives people the opportunity to kind of share, collaborate, get information, everything on one platform. So it makes sense that Zoom would kind of incorporate that in, but I am surprised that we haven't heard a whole lot more. So I think we should by the end of the day.
All right, well, we had AI Companion, we had Contact Center, not much Zoom Phone, Workvivo, industry updates. Anything else you guys want to, that you thought was notable?
I'll tell you one that I'm going to be cautious about. They did introduce a lot of new features. One of them they did put on main stage is something they called Task. To me, Task is like this sister application to Docs or whatever. The concept seems interesting, but I'm not going to trust it. So the idea is this.
It comes up with my tasks.
It comes up, but it's going to look across everything you do, not just your meeting notes and those summaries. It's going to look at your phone calls. It's going to look at your email and say, hey, at the end of the day, this is what you're going to do. Now, I'm not going to be at the point in time I'm going to trust that I get everything accounted by that. I'm still going to have my notebook next to me, looking at it side by side, kind of like I did with meeting summaries.
Yeah. So if you didn't do a task, you say, well, Zoom didn't know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if the boss is going to buy that one there. So anyway, so that's interesting.
Good thing you're your own boss.
I like. Good thing. Yeah, I like that they're pushing the bounds and making these more feature sets. I'm cautious to see how that one comes across.
All right. How about you, Mel?
Yeah, I think that one, I love the idea of it, and if it works right, I would love to not have to like check the box and put that over to because I actually keep, both Notepad and Notes.
That's not surprising.
Yeah, but you still miss something, right? I think one of the biggest takeaways for me today was just the number of features that they're rolling out, but the why. So, and Eric talked a lot about this in kind of our analyst only panel, which was they want to give people back time in their day. And so you asked a great question about what are you going to do with that time? And I think that's the struggle is nobody really knows yet what to do with that time. Some people want a 4-day work week. Eric envisions a place where, time when people will have a 4-day work week.
I don't trust corporate America enough to believe that.
Right?
They'll grab that time and put it to use. Don't worry.
Time and,
well, you were talking about a conversation with Fran Katsoudas from Cisco, right? And her idea was
right. And I said, what do you do with that time? And she said that their vision, at least, is you get half, they get half. So if they provide the tools for you to get back time in your day, you get half that time and they get half the time. So put that other half to work and then you get to do what you want.
The only problem with that is then you get that one really A-type person that says, I'm going to use all that time to get ahead of everybody else, and they just set the bar so high that everybody has to follow, right?
Yeah, that's maybe where something like Workvivo comes into play. So you have to make sure that people are not burning out, make sure that people kind of have a normal workload and that AI isn't taking over.
Yeah.
And what about yourself?
Things I thought were notable?
The standout.
Yeah, I really liked what they're doing with the AI Companion and the integration with the other applications.
Yeah.
One of the things I've become increasingly concerned about is every application I use has its own Copilot, AI Companion, whatever you want to call it. I don't want 55 AI companions, right? And so the more integration I can do across the two, so if ServiceNow can now talk to Zoom or Workday can talk to Zoom, or the better it is for the user,
right?
Because now I'm not trying to manage more things, right? I think one of the data points from my research last year was workers spend 40% of their time managing work.
Wow.
Right? Like we're not doing work, we're just managing work. And all these AI companions just exacerbate the problem. Like it saves me time on one side, but now I'm managing these other things on the other side, and maybe I'm not getting as much time as I thought. I think if you're you work for Zoom, you live in Zoom, that's one thing. But for a lot of us, we work in a lot of different applications, right? So I do think from an industry perspective, I'd like to see more of that.
I think those integrations also showed that they're targeting a new user. So you saw like ServiceNow and Jira, and several things that are even kind of developer focused.
Yeah.
That I don't think they've really been targeting in the past.
No, that's traditionally the Slack area,
Yeah.
right? So that's good
Yeah.
for them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. We're gonna wrap here.
I think it's a good
that's
wrap here.
Yeah. So I thought it was really a great keynote. There's lots of news. I was surprised. Actually, one thing we didn't ask was why they made the show smaller than it was before. But I think they're trying to show off their event platform. I heard the online presence was really pretty big.
They said like
Yes,
44,000, 47,000 people
A
registered.
very large group, and you could see it's kind of nice how they display it up on the screen, so you can kind of see who's at home
Right.
watching. I mean, not that I
Yeah, and this is just the Americas. They're going to do it again in Asia Pacific and also in EMEA.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, really appreciate your thoughts, guys.
This is great. Thank you so much for having us.
Okay. So, special thanks to Craig Durr from the Collab Collective, Melody Brue from Moor Insights. I'm ZS Caraval from ZK Research. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on my next episode of ZKast. Thanks, guys.